morning, folks. This is Deb Delapiana. It is always a pleasure to have coffee with you in the morning. So I've got a couple of video ideas here, and one's going to be posted this morning, and one will probably be posted later. I don't know. There's a lot in the hopper, let's put it that way, because we are approaching the midterm elections, and we are not going to let up on the GOP. We're just not, okay? If you're tired of hearing it, I'm really sorry. But right now, we stand right on the precipice of complete and utter fascism, and they simply cannot be returned to power. So today, we're going to talk about a tale of two governors. And, I'm always hearing stuff. I spend a lot of time on Twitter now because I find that the people on Twitter are much more awake and much more politically involved. And that's important. The people on Facebook, not so much anymore. They used to be. But we've tried to expand. We're on TikTok now. We're everywhere. And we're trying to be everywhere so that we can continue to inform people. So we're going to talk a little bit more this morning. This is, by the way, not going to be one of those short little 10-minute videos. We're going to talk about two Republican governors. And by the way, this was spurred by Lauren Boebert, or Lauren Bimbette. That's what I prefer to call her. Talking about, once again on Twitter, law and order, that the Democrats are not, a law and order party. Well, I'm going to just tell you right now, the Republican Party, anybody believing at this point that the Republican Party has any footing in law and order is a fucking flat out joke. Okay. And if you really do buy into that premise, you're a bona fide idiot, especially in light of everything that's right in front of your face right the fuck now. Okay. So she made the comment that the Democratic Party isn't a law and order party. First of all, I'd love to post her own personal rap sheet because she had a rap sheet before she was elected to office. It was as long as my arm from my elbow to my fingertips, okay? And her husband's no better. So she's got a lot of fucking chutzpah to talk about law and order. Okay, first of all, you need to apply that to your own life in order to be able to make those calls. So, Lauren, we're going to talk about your party because it ain't anywhere near law and order. So we're going to talk about Ron DeSantis, one of my favorite topics. We're going to share some information here, and I will put this all in the video. So as we all know, Ron DeSantis shipped migrants to Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts. Now, Martha's Vineyard is a pretty Tony location. There's a lot of wealth there. And, Ron DeSantis wrongly thought that sending migrants right onto the very land where wealthy, mostly white people live would expose the left for the hypocrisy that they espouse about caring about immigrants. Ron DeSantis got his lunch handed to him by those Tony white people in Martha's Vineyard. Nothing makes me prouder to be a Massachusetts born and bred resident than what they did. They not only rushed to help them, but they provided them with food. They provided them with translators brought to them from local schools, Spanish-speaking translators, students, so they could be understood. And the Massachusetts governor, a Republican, the last rational Republican standing in my book, became involved and helped them out. And, Ron DeSantis' little expose went down the toilet. And we like it when anything Ron DeSantis touches goes down the toilet. Believe me, it's a benefit for everybody because he is, without a doubt, next to Donald Trump, the most dangerous man in America. So the reason I'm talking about this again, because we did talk about this in our short video on Sunday, is because we have a little bit of new information that we're gonna tell you about. So we're getting there. So here's some of that new information. The new information is that one migrant says he was paid to recruit migrants for this little political nightmare. You know, to call this a political stunt is not giving it the proper weight. And we really need to do that. So, although it was designed as a political stunt, I believe Hillary Clinton is actually right when she calls it human trafficking. Well, what else could it be called? Because these people were not only piled on a plane and flown to Massachusetts, but Ron DeSantis did this. These were people who were already in Texas, where, by the way, Governor Abbott has been doing the same kind of shit. He actually had migrants bust to Kamala Harris's house. We're not talking about him today, but we will, because we're not done with him. He's got a whole host of nightmarish policies that we will be talking about going forward. And we need Beto O'Rourke to win the governorship in Texas if we have any hope of restoring anything to that state. So apparently a 27-year-old Venezuelan migrant named Emmanuel said that a woman named Perla gave him $200 from, quote, an anonymous benefactor to recruit fellow asylum seekers outside a city-run migrant center in San Antonio, where the flights originated. So already we see evidence. We see evidence of the lethality of Ron DeSantis's administration. And make no bones about it. It's an administration-wide poison. Anybody who is voluntarily working for this man is just as bad as he is. Okay? This is what this migrant said. Quote, Perla informed me that in those sanctuary states, the state has the benefits to help migrants. I've just been the mediator because I like to help people. A lot of people really came without plans. They want to come and just work, and they have a hand that'll provide them shelter, he added. I just saw it that way, like a sweet way, doing it for good. So we already have these people being preyed upon, okay? We're still trying to figure out some more information on Perla. We're sure this will come out in the next several days.
Arrived last night, make it clear that they were locked.
I'm going to stop that video. I'm going to put this video in here because another thing that happened on Martha's Vineyard is immigration attorneys became involved, and that is probably the best possible scenario for these migrants. This woman, you know, this is a video, by the way, by the Miami Herald, which is a newspaper that I subscribe to, and there's a reason why I subscribe to that. It's worth every penny I spend on it. This video, I encourage everybody to watch. You will get the full outline of exactly what was done here, okay? How these people were misled. Some of these people were escaping from an oppressive regime in Venezuela, okay? They had already traveled miles to get here. Some of these people had injuries that were not tended to. And these people, every single one of them, was lied to and misled by Ron DeSantis. This video is a must watch. So now we get to this point here, and this is the new information that we've gotten since our Sunday night video. The smoking gun in Martha's Vineyard. And this is by a great, I see Substack as a blogging venue, but there are people on Substack who are genuinely investigative journalists, and Judd Legum is one of them. His blog is called Popular Information. This is a great article. It's got It's got a lot of links in it. You should pay attention to it. You should also understand that this charter flight nonsense that's been going on was inspired by none other than Tucker Carlson, who is a xenophobe of the highest order. Okay. And it was Tucker Carlson on his show who suggested sending migrants to Martha's Vineyard in huge numbers. Those were his words, huge numbers. And if you don't believe that Ron DeSantis did this for political purposes, consider the fact that he sent a videographer along on the plane to film the results of his political stunt, of his human trafficking effort, as it were, because he was absolutely positive that the Tony White people of Massachusetts, Martha's Vineyard, were going to openly reject them, ignore them, throw them to the wolves. And by the way, let me just say this. Kevin Sorbo, who's a fucking moron, insinuated that the people of Martha's Vineyard and the people of Massachusetts deported them. They did not. They sent them to a location on the mainland in Falmouth that had the appropriate settings and housing for these people. Okay. No one deported them. So that's an outright lie. But you know what? The people who are in the GOP are nothing but liars. They lie every day. And the people who support them swear to their lies. So that's where we are with that. And by the way, these people, and you know, this might come to fruition here someday. These people were leaving a repressive Venezuelan regime. You know, we're headed there. And if anybody watched Donald Trump's Ohio speech, knows that that's where he's headed if he's reelected. That's where the GOP is headed, whether or not he is the candidate in 2024. So understand this, folks. But most importantly is the smoking gun, which is right here, which is this little brochure that was put together by none other than the Ron DeSantis administration, telling them that they were going to get cash help. There was housing waiting, furnishings, food, and other basic necessities, clothing and transportation to job interviews, registering children for school, using public transportation facilities and services, community and cultural orientation. This is in 2 languages and was clearly designed to mislead these people, to lull them into a sense of someone's here taking care of us. We're going to get on this plane and we're going to have a better life. This is not, my friends, okay. There are 2 sides to this. They've even used the Massachusetts welcomes you sign on our highways. Community service in churches on the island, right here. It's amazing the extent that they went to achieve their goals. Ron DeSantis is a disgusting human being. Now, the sheriff in Texas of Bexar County, Javier Salazar, has opened up a criminal investigation against the people who have lured these migrants under false pretenses into this situation. You know, for people who are already stressed out, this is just more stress, okay? And this is, you know, indicative of just the way the GOP feels about people who come to this country. The big fact of the matter is here, let's get real. Do I agree that we need a workable, legitimate immigration policy? I agree. And you know what? We've tried to achieve that. But the real fact of the matter is that the GOP doesn't want any immigrants. There are people on the right calling for a completely white society. There are people from the right calling for the borders to be closed. Okay, completely closed so that nobody gets in. Okay, my grandparents came here from Italy. Okay, I have a bunch of friends whose parents have come from other countries. We are all fucking immigrants here, whether the GOP wants to admit it or not. There's only one group of Native Americans. And that's the Native Americans. And we made sure we wiped them out either through disease or slaughter. And then we stole their fucking children and try to Americanize them. So let's get this history right here. The history that Ron DeSantis also doesn't want taught in his schools. So this sheriff here, who happens to be maybe one of the only Democrats in Texas, but he is investigating the migrants who lured under false pretenses. Okay, and that's a good thing, because there are people who believe the DOJ should be involved, like Charlie Crist in Florida. And we'll see where this goes. But Ron DeSantis, we're going to expose one more thing about him. He can say whatever he wants, but people's actions also probably mean a whole hell of a lot more than what they say. It's actually what you do that matters. His latest campaign for his reelection features a Christian nationalist pastor with anti-Semitic views. Okay? He's not apologizing for this. He's done this before. He's right on board there. He's Trump Jr. He's younger than Trump, and he's Trump on steroids as far as I'm concerned. This pastor, Larry Jinks of the First Baptist Church of St. James City, Florida, he has praised DeSantis for allowing religious congregations, quote, to worship together in person during the pandemic. He has a history of inflammatory rhetoric, including saying that it's a shame Jews rejected Jesus as their own Messiah. So basically, he's saying that it's really a shame that the Jews haven't converted to Christianity and accepted Jesus as their savior. These are his words. It's a shame that the Jews, who should know better, reject their own Messiah, who fulfilled every one of their prophecies, still believe that they need sacrifices in the temple to sacrifice them in. Nonetheless, because of their rejection, they will move forward with that plan. And, that was a response to an article in the Jerusalem Post about rebuilding the temple. It was an op-ed. He has been out there on social media saying really bad things about Jewish people. And, that is what we call anti-Semitism. Full blown. I just want to stick this in here. It probably should have been earlier on, but it isn't. I just want you to know that the orange jackaloon here is pissed off at DeSantis now because he stole his plan for the migrants. That was his plan. That was Ron DeSantis. It wasn't him. It was his plan, and Ron DeSantis stole it. And he's pissed off now because he thinks he should get the credit, because he just can't get enough bad credit, can he? Yeah. By the way, we have another article that we don't have here, but we will put it in, relative to Ron DeSantis and the whole anti-Semitism issue, about how Florida has become a hotbed for the Proud Boys, and their anti-Semitic leaning has grown so much since this guy took office. It's unbelievable. And, that's clearly attached right to him. All the shit he says, all the people he aligns himself with. My point here is, it isn't just migrants he has problems with. It's gay people. It's trans people. It's Jewish people. Okay? It's just about everybody who isn't a fat, white, bloated, right-wing male. That's what he's got problems with. So we move on to our second law-abiding governor. And I know you're probably thinking this could be Tate Reeves, but we get to him. But he's not the tale of two governors. He's the tale of the third governor, but he's involved with the second governor. We're going to talk about Trump supporter Brett Favre with a personal wealth of $110 million. And former Governor Phil Bryant, who helped Brett Favre funnel money from the welfare coffers of the state of Mississippi, the poorest state in the union. All right, money that was earmarked for people who are in need. They funneled money for a volleyball stadium at the school where his daughter was going to be playing volleyball. They did this, of course, Governor Bryant, the former governor here, denies any involvement, denies knowing about it. He can deny whatever he wants, but now the texts are out. Okay, they have the texts now, so Bryant even fired the former welfare agency director, John Davis, for suspected fraud. But then he got right on board with this. Okay? When Favre asked Bryant how the new agency director might affect their plans to fund the volleyball stadium, Bryant assured him, quote, "I will handle that. Long story, but had to make a change. But I will call Nancy and see what it will take." That is Nancy New, who is a nonprofit, runs a nonprofit. And it's, the newly released text show that Nancy New, Bryant, Favre, and Davis, the man he fired, all worked together to make this happen. They channeled at least $5 million of the state's welfare funds to build a new volleyball stadium at University of Southern Mississippi, where Favre's daughter played the sport. Favre received most of the credit for raising the funds. Of course, they never mentioned the fact that he was pilfering the state's welfare coffers to build a stadium. A man who could have easily given $5 million of $110 million that he had in wealth and done this legitimately. But see, that is the greed of professional sports merging with the corruption of the GOP. It's mind-blowing to me. All of this is mind-blowing. It is simply the single largest fraudulent known purchase in this whole scheme of things. Okay, Nancy New has already pled guilty to 13 felony counts, and Davis is awaiting trial for his part in this. But unfortunately, neither Bryant nor Favre have been brought to justice, and they probably won't be, because guess what? You ready? Governor Tate Reeves abruptly fired the attorney bringing the state's case when he tried to subpoena documents related to the volleyball stadium. So there is the third governor, not directly involved in the scheme itself, but certainly more than willing to cover up for his previous governor and his buddies. Should be noted that Brett Favre plays golf with Donald Trump. He's a Trump supporter, and he's also a proponent of the big lie. It's amazing. It really is. I just can't. I'm stunned by all of this. It's just, this shit goes on, taken out of funds that are called that from the TANF fund, which is the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families. In spite of the fact that federal regulations prohibit states from using those funds on brick and mortar or the construction of buildings. They're supposed to be used for other things. Okay? So in other words, you can't use that money to build a shelter. But you can use that money to build a volleyball stadium. This is the kind of shit that we see every day And yet we keep hearing about how the Republicans are the law and order party. It's the Democrats that are the evil people. We break the laws. You know what? We don't. I'm tired of hearing the narrative that the two parties are the same. They are not the same. That is so 2016. That was shit that was fed to you by the right wing, by the way. And I can attest to that because we were streaming with some of those people. There are more texts, and the texts show that the ex-governor knew about the whole welfare scheme, even though he is denying it. And even though right now he is insulated from any kind of justice being served because of who? Fat Boy. It should be noted here that there is also another $1.1 million that was given to Brett Favre to make motivational speeches and to do ads for the welfare department. He was supposed to be doing these in 2017 and 2018. He made none of those speeches. He did none of that work. This was just another 1.1 million to add on to what he needed to build that volleyball stadium. And the Mississippi State auditor demanded the money back with interest. Now, Favre repaid that 1.1 million, but with no interest. Okay. And the payment was directed to be given to him by former Governor Phil Bryant. It's disgusting. I mean, you know, it's just disgusting that this even goes on in this country, that a man with such personal wealth can get away with this shit is ridiculous. And it isn't, I'm going to say it again, the Democratic Party. This is clearly in the Republican Party's bailiwick. This is what they do. Just take a look at the indictments and the investigations going on against Donald Trump. There are no indictments yet, my mistake. But there are at least, I don't know, 26 different kinds of investigations and, you know, accusations and civil suits against him. There are 6 major investigations against him. But there is a website called Just Security that keeps a rolling tally of the shit he's being investigated for. And it's updated weekly with changes. This shit starts at the top, folks, whether you want to accept this or not. And before I close this out, a little bit of commentary about Tate Reeves. Tate Reeves, who is also enmeshed in his own mess, which is the problem with the Jackson water system, which, you know, honestly is very similar, although not entirely the same, very similar to what went on in Michigan at Flint. Okay. Now, we go through a whole situation here. You know about it. You've heard about it. If you haven't heard about it, you should look it up, where they haven't had safe drinking water for quite some time in Jackson. He went to an event. There are 150,000 people in Jackson without water. They are boiling water. They even have to boil water to shower. Okay. This slob, I can't, you know, describe him any other way, goes to this event, and his opening comment is, I've got to tell you, it's a great day to be in Hattiesburg. It's also, as always, a great day to not be in Jackson. He's mocking his own city in the midst of a crisis. And, you know, Tate Reeves doesn't care because, as you can see, he's another bloated white right-winger, and he's white. Okay? The fact of the matter is that, how did we get to this point in Jackson? This is a great article. It's from Inside Climate News. I'm putting this in. And this woman named Heather McTeer-Toney, she's the former regional EPA administrator, is talking about this. There are 3 factors involved here. It's one of them is white flight. So pretty much the state of Mississippi is the poorest state in the union. And it's politics are dominated by Republican politicians, but the city of Jackson was run by Democrats. And what you essentially had was the wealthier white people moving out to the suburbs, leaving the infrastructure to be ignored because it's largely black and it's run by Democrats. And the white people ran and took their money with them. And so it's not viewed the same way when it comes to keeping up infrastructure, okay? And there have been times when they have tried to get the state to help them to do this, and they were rejected in that effort. It's called environmental racism, folks. And it happens all the time. It's not just happening in Jackson. It didn't just happen in Flint. It happens elsewhere in America. And the other contributing factor to all of this becoming as big a mess as it is climate change. Another situation we face in the United States that the GOP is more than happy to deny even exists. And even the ones who acknowledge some of it say it has nothing to do with us. We didn't create any of that. The people aren't at fault. Well, you know what? We actually fucking are. Okay? We actually are. We live on a planet that is organic and a living entity. So it's like the human body. You put shit in it, it gets sick. Same shit here. Okay? You keep pumping shit into the atmosphere. You keep putting shit in the water. You keep ignoring infrastructure. Okay? Or you do stuff like in Flint, where the Republican governor decided it would be cheaper to use contaminated water as drinking water. We saw what happened there. People in America shouldn't be waiting for people to be benevolent enough to drop off bottled water so they can live. You know what? Again, I'm tired of hearing about it. You know, the people in this country have one choice. One choice. These are failures of a sick system, to be sure. But you know what? I promise you that none of that will ever be addressed if the Republicans are put in power in 2022. You can forget 2024. People who may be sitting here thinking that, oh, you know what? We'll just deal with this in 2024. You know what I mean? We'll just deal with this in 2024 because you know what? I have to say this. The people on the right, they always show up to vote. The people on the left, kind of not so much. You know, I've heard people saying they're going to sit out the midterms. You know what? You sit out the midterms. Don't fucking come complaining to me. I'm serious about this. There is no sitting out the midterms this cycle because you know something? If you sit out the midterms and they take the House and they take the Senate, you can forget 2024. Forget it. You can forget any legitimate election ever happening again. In Florida, again, I go back to Florida. We have Laura Loomer, who lost the primary and is filing a lawsuit that the election was stolen. She lost the primary within her own party, and she's filing a lawsuit. What do you think is going to happen when these morons start losing? We need to get rid of them now, folks. We really do. So far, only one person has been held accountable and removed from office for being an election denier and for refusing to certify an election. All of those people need to be removed. The Marjorie Taylor Greens, the people who continue to spread this lie, they need to be removed. Yes. You know, should they have been removed? Yes. But you know what? Unfortunately, the people making criminal cases, I'm going to say this again, I say this all the time, are not working in the court of public opinion. They have to have evidence, and the evidence has to connect, and the evidence has to prove that they were guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. That takes time. Okay? If you don't take the time and do it right, what happens? The case fails. If you start spreading everything on social media about where you are with the investigation, that is going to be seen as bias. They can use that in court to get charges thrown out, or shit gets overturned on appeal. This has to be done right. We the people. We operate in the court of public opinion. We can get them out of office now, which actually makes it easier for them to be prosecuted later. Folks, we have one choice. We are either going to start making headway here in the 2022 midterms, or we're not. And if we're not, then I guess, people in this country either don't take this whole fascism thing seriously, or they're okay with it. I don't know which one it is, but I'm alarmed by it. And I'm alarmed by a lot of things. And we're going to talk about some of those other things later on, not in this particular video. What I'm trying to show you here is that people are always thinking about the House and the Senate on a federal level. We're in a situation in this country now where every single level of political power is critical. From your school committees, Ron DeSantis is poisoning the school committees throughout Florida. And so is Greg Abbott, okay? From the school committees to your local legislators in your cities, to your state legislators, to your federal legislators. All of these slots are critical. The secretaries of state, there are people who are winning or who are running for the Secretary of State position in this country who are election deniers. They will be in charge of the elections. They are running for governor. We have Carrie Lake in Arizona. We have Jeff Deal in Massachusetts. These people haven't committed to the notion that they will accept if they lose. They haven't said they will acknowledge their loss yet. I think Jeff Deal might have said it yesterday. But it took them weeks to get him to say that. And there are some who are insisting that they will not accept an election loss. They are running at every level of government. Donald Trump has left behind an army of fascists, and they are running at every level of government because they understand their opportunity here. This is on the people, folks. Don't sit around waiting for Merrick Garland to charge Donald Trump, because it's going to take time for this investigation to unfold against him. It's easy to get the people who broke into the Capitol. It's easy to get the people who were on video doing the shit that they did. That's the easy part. 900 people have already been charged, and they're still looking for people, okay? To get the people at the top who crafted this fucking debacle, that takes longer. That takes subpoenas. It takes turning over documents. It takes a long time. Don't wait for him to be charged before the midterms. He won't be. Because the other problem you have here is there are situations where you can't do shit that looks like you're trying to influence an election. You the people, we the people, have the power to take these people out of office. No one is stuck with any of these fascists. It's time to take your mind out of the, I have an R next to my name, I'm going to vote Republican no matter who that is. You criticize the left for doing that, but actually right now, vote blue no matter who is of paramount importance because of where we are in history. We weren't here in 2012. We weren't here in 2016. But by 2017, after Donald Trump won, it was clear that we were headed in this direction. The GOP knew who he was. The GOP aided and abetted him. And the GOP is still aiding and abetting him by allowing these candidates to run. They have basically abdicated their party to fascists, which makes them fascists. I rest my case. I'll talk to you all later.